Um, right. Well, for those who've joined, thank you very much for putting up with our waffle. Welcome to another session at Viva around the world. I'm going to hand over to Marijn and Steve and let you take over.
See you,
All
Kevin.
right. Brilliant.
All right.
Thank you. And Daryl already left, so I totally forgot to say thanks. So he's been moderating for the past 7 hours. So
Wow.
that's amazing. I mean,
I'm glad I didn't volunteer for that job.
Yeah. It would have been way too early for me. So yeah.
All right.
Anyway.
So I guess we have an audience here, Marijn. Perhaps maybe we just are they able to chat to us? And we do like to have a little interaction. I'm assuming potentially the comments come back. If
I have no
yeah,
idea.
hello, I can see some stuff. So yes, if you want to drop any questions or chat to us, please do that. You're well aware that Marijn and I are very focused. We never vary off our subject. We always end up trying to add stuff in, and we'll try and stick with the 745 slides that we have to do on this subject. There we go. So we can see those coming in. We'll keep an open eye on those and then take it from here. No. Okay, so Viva Explorers, 70% of projects fail, fake news. And that's what we're going to kind of move on with. Okay, I need to click on that to go to the next slide.
Yay, nice. So, since Steve took my first slide that I was going to present,
I'll let you have mine then.
It's our spiel all over again. So he's always stealing my thunder, but that's fine. That's fine. So, so we're both Viva Explorers. So thank you for letting us in to be part of the whole game. Steve got his Viva character built yesterday, so that is awesome. It looks very cool. I already told him this morning that it I was wondering what the thing was next to him. So I thought it was like one of those heavyweight boxing belts or whatever. But it's a light bulb, an innovation, of course. And for my picture, Steve actually was super kind a few months ago to actually set that up for me, and I just love it. I've got it here as a print as well behind me because I just love that thing. So anyway, over to our session. So indeed, we want to explore, like, do 70% of these projects fail? Is that a thing? Is that true? And so what about Viva? Is it that difficult? Is it that weird? Is it that something else? And throughout the session, we are going to deliver trying to deliver anyway, some golden nuggets that you might take away, so that if you go and implement any of the Viva applications on Monday, you might have something to think about.
Cool. All right, I'll let you do the advert as well, Marijn.
All right, cool. So this is us, two goofballs. So we're both living in Belgium, and we, for the past 5 years, we've been doing this thing together called our little podcast, Office 365 Distilled, where we talk about Microsoft 365 for about 50 minutes, 45 minutes. We mainly discuss topics like governance, user adoption, as we would be sitting in a bar after work, just chilling, relaxing. And then we end each episode with a little whiskey tasting. So we now have, according to Spotify, over 150 episodes, which means we've also had 150 different whiskeys that we tasted. So we can call ourselves spirit guides now, I think. So
spirit guides.
That would be
Oh, it's a new one.
Yeah. So
And
That's what
we've
we do,
actually
so-
just published our 150th podcast. So even though we have a mixture of some we do together and some individuals ones and some with guests, but we had a great statistic came up on our platform that we've just hit 150 podcasts, which yeah, and I guess we still love each other, brother. So yeah.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on and teach these guys something. So that's what we're trying to do. So let's very briefly, it takes a while for this to change for some reason. So fake news. We've all heard that projects fail. 70% of projects fail. It's a lot of the internet. It's quoted by a number of people. And Simon Lewington, who I don't know personally, but he's got a great article on LinkedIn, actually did a whole piece on this and whether it's true or not. So is there any hard evidence that actually these projects fail or not? And basically there are a number of things, a number of areas in this space that actually cover that. And effectively it came off by a guy called John Cotter. So John Cotter, many of you probably know, has got many a book out there around change management. And he makes the very broad statement that says, for years of study, I estimate today that more than 70% of needed project change fail to launch or be completed. And that's really the one that most people actually end up believing in, that it's 70% there. There's other people looked at it, of course. So Harvard Business Review, they looked at it and they said, the brutal fact is that about 70% of all change initiatives fail. But they also produced no evidence to support it. And then Change Management Journal also took 5 projects. And even though they kind of hinted that it might be true, they concluded that while this statistic is in there, they couldn't actually prove that it was true. But it still kind of feels that way, that projects or 70% of change management projects fail. But we wanted to set the scene really to sort of, think about how do we make projects succeed. And so we used the 70% of change project search engine. We threw a bit into the proverbial chat GPT. We threw a bit into Bing and had a look at where things were coming from to try and understand why they were failing. And then what we want to do today is to go over some of those warnings so that there are things you can look at. And then also take a look at some of the things you can do to make sure that your Viva projects actually succeed.
So we're ending off on a positive note, yes.
Exactly. So that's what we're actually looking to try and do, is we want to finish on a positive note. So just to let you know that before we finish on the end here, that's what we'll do. We want to identify and remind you that, people change for the better. It may not be 70%. We also want to be able to look at identifying successes. And we're going to dig down into these points by the end of the presentation. So just want to let you know, it's not all bad news. So that's where we're kind of looking at.
Doom and gloom.
Let's take a very quick look at why it is so difficult and a little bit of history. Now, I'm going to be talking about this slide a little bit later on today when I do experience level agreements in about 5 or 6 hours time or something. But in our podcast, which is due to be released tomorrow, in fact, tomorrow or Sunday, depending on how early I get my ass out of bed, we had a look at the different kind of applications that Microsoft have been working on. If you could like, it's their 3 factories and it's their 3 main areas. Of course, we have our apps for enterprise, PowerPoint, Excel and Word, the production apps. All right. We have our functional apps that are included in their cloud offering. So, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, etc. And then we have Viva apps. And these Viva apps, we call them cultural apps because they are trying to change the culture of the organization for the better. And that is their core objective. So I just want to take that line 3 there, kind of in the middle of the presentation. And I'm just wondering whether there is a tool in StreamYard to actually identify it or not. Actually, I have to put the mouse on here. You can see it here, so that's all right. But this line here where you measure your successes, it's very easy to find things in production apps and functional apps to say, hey, we did well. Marijn, we briefly talked about it when we did our ADKAR series. Some of the things that you measure to be able to decide what went well and what didn't. I mean, things like number of shares, number of links, that kind of stuff. And we do that on a regular basis. But when it comes to measuring success of Viva apps, it's incredibly difficult to do. It's not impossible. So as you can see on my adoption table here, I'll talk about this a lot later on today, but the adoption side of Viva apps is very hard. And it's mainly very hard because there's no common message for everybody, because everybody is going to be empowered at a different layer by the Viva applications, because it's a cultural change. And as the number of apps grow, and we'll talk about that in a second, it's going to get much more difficult to be able to sort of have common messages, common goals, and common outcomes because of the personalization. So production apps, we've got lit. Functional apps, some people have, but we're getting there. But when it comes to cultural apps, it's very, very difficult to try and identify how you've been successful and where you've been successful. Whoa, change the slide. I'm clicking away. Next slide. Try that one. There we go.
There we go. All right. So, of course, in this Viva Around the World session, we need to talk about Viva. So Steve did a wonderful job talking about collaboration and enterprise and Viva apps. So this is kind of an easy slide. So of course, you all know what Viva is. You all know what the Viva applications are, but we kind of wanted to pinpoint a little bit on these applications. So of course, we've got Pulse as the first one that is coming out. We've got Learning as a second one. We've got Viva Insights. We've got Connections. We've got Topics, Engage, Goals, and Amplify that's going to come out as well. Now, what we want to do in this session is actually look at 3 of these applications. So the 3 arrows that you just saw. So we've got Insights, we've got Topics, and we've got Amplify that we kind of want to deep dive on how to roll it out, how to set it up, what the value is for the organization, because we don't want to do that for all of the applications, because then we would be here for a few hours. So that's not very useful. So we want to really deep dive a little bit on these 3. So we've got Insights, which is the ubiquitous one. Jeez. We got Topics, which might be a little more hardcore, but more value for the organization as an enterprise level thing. And then we've got Amplify, which is not out yet, but we still wanted to give you our 5 cents on the value of that application and rolling it out and setting up your project management. So let's take a look at Viva Topics first.
Yep. So the idea is that we wanted to choose items where we could look at reasons for that projects fail, and then identify within these particular applications how well they do. But before we do that, we obviously need to kind of make sure we all understand, especially from our perspective, what each of these do and where they're at. So we're going to start off by looking at Topics. Now, Topics is, I guess, what we call a growth app. It's about getting to the content. And in reality, Topics was one of the very first apps that got rolled out that was slightly different or didn't integrate something else. And it was really one that links between the collaboration of SharePoint and the ability to collaborate within Teams as well, and also to be able to sort of add value to it. So Topics is about building knowledge networks. As a growth application, it will assist in ensuring that people can get to the essence of a particular subject or a strategy or a project or some information within the organization. One of Marijn's loves of Topics, and you mentioned this in the podcast, was, as a new starter, Topics is the perfect place to point people to say, hey, look, this is the organization. This is what's important to us at this moment in time. And it is able to sort of bring and identify the things that they need to. The other thing about Topics is it's great to be able to measure this application. So SharePoint Analytics, page views, etc., and a number of external third-party tools as well will actually give you some quantifiable information around how well those topics are being viewed and whether messages are obviously getting through to the right kind of people. And topics provides purpose and outcome. Strategically, topics is a knowledge management tool. It's around getting the right information to the right people. In my mind, again, as usual, we're kind of taking our time on getting these messages across, but I think it's important. In my mind, there are three kinds of data and information and knowledge that we present to people. The way that it works is that you have data, which in its own right actually doesn't give you anything. We can have data sets, but it's the fact that you have 2 points of data that give you information. Simply, it's raining is completely irrelevant, especially on a conference that's going around the world, because unless we know where it's raining, it's actually useless information. So if we know it's raining outside or raining in London and I'm in London, then obviously it has some value to me. But when it gets to knowledge management, it's about what I do about that information. So I personally hate rain, so I will make sure I have a good coat and an umbrella because it's raining in London and I'm in London. And knowledge is the bit that adds value to the organization. And topics provides you with access to that information. And of course, because it's pointing it to the right people with that right knowledge, with information and experience on that information, then it's about a knowledge management. So the ability to be able to bring in specific subjects is what Viva Topics does. Anything to add to that, Marijn? Is that all good?
That sounds ideal, yeah.
Yeah, we sat
Now,
and talked about it.
maybe you do need to mention that, of course, Viva Topics is an add-on, bolt-on license.
Yeah.
Something that you need to pay extra for, but something that, as you said, brings in knowledge management from where you work. So you don't have to go hunt for information. It will
come to you.
Exactly.
It'll come to you. And that's pretty cool. Cool. We should stop being so negative and telling people they've got to pay for this stuff because they already know it. Yeah, they is that third tranche of information. It's one of Microsoft's obviously income generations for the next few years, and something they're pushing out on top of where they're going. So that's topics, and we'll take a look at how potentially that will help you not to be a 70% failure, and our value and the value that can bring to the organization.
All right. Insights. I like Insights. It is one of the first applications that we saw with Viva when it was announced.
Yeah.
And Viva Insights is all about your personal insights, your personal set of beliefs, your personal way of working. So before our session, there was this session, and I hope I'm not butchering her name, Onyenye Madubuko. And I was listening to that, and I was watching her, and I was like, this is what it's all about. She was talking about how to protect her well-being, how to protect her work-life balance. And that was just very, very insightful to see how she was using this, because of course we all have different ways of setting this up. So there are a few flavors to Viva Insights. So on the base note, the base flavor, the one that you get not for free, but the one that is included in your E3 license, is your personal insights. How do I work? Who are the people that I collaborate with? How does my day look? Am I prepared for my day tomorrow? So a number of things that might come to you that would explain how you work, some tips on what would be better to work so that you can do your best work, you can be your best self. So you can get your recommendations and your learning to boost your productivity, because that is in the end what we all want to do. Now, that was the base layer. So built on top of that, and that's where the Viva extra license comes in, is where you can, as a team manager, get your insights of your team, or as a manager in the organization can actually get insights in how the work culture of your whole organization is going and what direction it is going, and that you can steer if you want to, because that is what you're measuring there. So you can steer how you want your organization's work culture to appear in the future. Now, I also had to put that know thyself quote from Socrates on there, of course, because that is what this is all about. So it's about standing still for a moment and think about your day. Think about what you want to achieve. Think about how you're doing things. Thinking about people that you need to follow up with. And this application will help you do that. So we've got a number of capabilities. We've got headspace integration if you need to do a little meditation, if you need to get pumped up for a session, to deliver a presentation, if you need to wind down, all these things. So Viva Insights helps you learn more about yourself as a manager, helps you learn more about how your team works and thrives, or your organization work culture works.
And obviously, Marijn, you did the headspace before you stepped into this presentation this morning, because I can see you ready to rock and roll and kill the audience.
Actually, I have a very, very, very funny quote about that little story about that. So while we were in Vegas half a year ago, I was listening to a song from, I think the band is called Steel Panther. It's some kind of rock country thing. And I thought that they were singing, "But my heart is community property." And I thought, oh, that is so cool. And I'm going to use that song every time I'm going to do a session. So when I'm walking on the stage, this would be my intro tune. Now, a few weeks ago, I had to do a presentation. I was like, yeah, I'll get that song ready. And I was listening to the song, and that was not the lyrics that they were singing. It was not the heart that was community property. It was other private bits that were community property. So maybe that's not the one to use for sessions.
Know thyself.
Know thyself.
Know thyself. All right, cool. So that's Insights. It is a great app, and I'm sure we're all used to using it. And to me, Insights is one that you have to respect other people. This cultural change that we've been talking about, this is a typical example of it. When you look at people's diaries and it says focus time, you know that that's been put in there by Insights. You know that it's not something they booked themselves, and it's so tempting to stamp right over it and say, actually, I need to meet you in that time, and that's the only slot available. So this idea of cultural change, this discernment thing is about know thyself and respect other people. But Insights really brings that into the fray. But typically, again, you can't measure those kinds of things. But that measurement does come as you buy the other licenses, and we know these things cost. And we'll touch on that a little bit later about one of the reasons that projects fail and how Insights can actually help us do that. So yeah, it's cool. The other one that we want to take a quick look at, I'm just going to build this slide straight away so that we don't tease you with what's coming around the corner. It just makes life easier. Is really this amplifier, which is new. It's in private preview at the moment. We're waiting for it to come into public preview, which I'm assuming will be at some point in the next month, we think, in terms of timing, but of course it depends how it goes. But Amplifier's got some really good, pretty neat tools. It's really about campaigning across the enterprise. And one of the biggest issues we have at the moment, and as part of our own adoption programs within sort of the Microsoft 365, is where do I go to do a particular job, and where do I go to find out my information? And of course, different people do different things. Different people might have Yammer. Yammer might be their thing, and they spend most time in Yammer and get a lot of their information in that space. A lot of people might be in email. I guess we're all in email at some point or another, but Teams, chats, etc., etc. And so Amplify is a way of being able to disseminate information into different different kinds of distribution channels. It also has the capability of being able to say, this is an IT message, and most of the people that listen to IT messages, we want it really to be in email, or we want it to be, and so I can not post it to Yammer. And of course, it allows you basically to be creative in different spaces. So I can create it once generally, and then I can distribute it to an infinite amount of places. Well, not really an infinite amount of places, but anywhere within the Microsoft 365 space. There's a way of getting feedback on that content. And just like a kind of marketing tool, there's a way of getting measurement as to how many people have read it and that kind of stuff. And also it makes sure people do get to see that content through the various channels. So Amplify is very much a tool we've been waiting for, that allows us to be able to make sure that people get to see that content. And those of you that are experienced in this area and you kind of already know what Loop is, and you've seen potentially some of the stuff on Copilot, and if you throw that into this mix, kind of gets really excited about where Amplify potentially could get to us. We already know that Copilot is going to help people create content in a very good creative way. So yeah, this is kind of exciting around where we're going to be able to guarantee people get stuff delivered. But the measurement, of course, is one of those things that we really need to know, so we know that important messages got through to the right people and that they've actually read it and seen it. But we're all anticipative about what it's going to be like in reality, and then take it from. So there are 3 applications that we wanted to kind of at least refer back to as we're moving forward. Yeah, let's get back to why projects fail.
Yes, because there are a number of, well, probably well-known ways why a project would fail. So executive sponsorship is one of those. But if we talk about Viva projects, there might be some very specific reasons why. So we are going to deep dive a little more into these. We are not going to deep dive into the 2 that have a purple arrow. We might want to talk about that just a little, just right here. So for example, the lack of integration. If we take a look at Viva Insights, for example, we see that it's kind of integrated into Teams, it's kind of integrated into Outlook, but there are very separate things that you can do. So we don't have those in there. The other one is insufficient customization and personalization. It's kind of a take it or leave it way, especially if we look at Viva Insights, for example. So do you have anything to add on these 2 items?
I think the insufficient customization and personalization is an odd thing to think of as a failure for Viva, because obviously it's an empowerment application, so we expect it to be in there. But of course, with Power Apps taking on a lot of responsibility within your organization's processes and workflows, then it's about really trying to be able to say, how does Viva fit into that? And of course, if people are process driven and Viva doesn't fit into those daily processes that I have to do, then you'll have less reasons for, or less take up or pick up of those kinds of things, and in terms of the particular applications. So again, they're common reasons for fail, and we kind of took and looked at the 7 main reasons for projects to fail. But those things are the kind of lower end of the reasons, and they're really specifically around organizations that are very process driven, because it's difficult to integrate Viva applications into a common or a corporate process. So yes, that is one of those areas. Plus, if you're looking at getting Viva and taking just the free aspects of it, then it's very much more difficult to customize it and personalize it. It still adds some value. I think there's a presentation out there that says, hey, doing Viva on the cheap. Maybe that's the application name already, or the presentation name. But like what can you get out of learning, for example? without actually having to buy the learning areas and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of organizations testing them and POCing Viva, but these are two areas where you would not be able to integrate them into existing processes or customize them the way that you would want to without necessarily doing the investment. But rest assured, we're not going to dig deep into these areas. But if you can customize them to suit your organization and you can integrate them into your processes, then you will have more success. All right, let's take the first one. So executives, you know, they're kind of busy guys. They've got priorities that are slightly different. And it might be they're too busy, or, you know, they don't really care enough that far down the organization, depending on layers you've got. They obviously do care, but, you know, is culture a bottom line priority? Or, you know, maybe they don't even know you're rolling out Viva. Or actually, you know, if you really want to get executive buy-in, you need to help them understand the application. You need to help them know that this is what Viva is, this is what we're doing, this is where it can bring things in. And there are a number of really quite good tools that would actually help them in a lot of their areas. You can guarantee that at an organization, communication is not always as good as it needs to be. So, you know, communicating information down from the executives, they want to be able to let you know what the strategic objectives are. They want to let you know how well the organization is doing. They want to let you know that, you know, we're open for you to come and talk to us at any time, if you can find us in our busy schedules. But, you know, so at the C level within the organization, there are many tools in Viva that will actually improve things that have been inherently a problem for them. So yes, if you don't get executive buy-in for Viva or any other projects, it will really not do as well as you'd like. It will be part of that 70% of the failure of a project, because, you know, basically we all know, get your executive to buy in. But if we look at those topics, insights and amplify applications that we were focusing on within the executives, then it's going to help them. Yeah, topics is going to allow them to be able to say, hey, this is a strategic objective for us, and this is what we're doing about where it will work, so that, you know, people can actually, their message can get out there. And of course, Amplify is an ideal tool for them to be able to communicate and improve their communications as well. And as Marijn said, the layer 3 of insights, so yes, the personalized at layer 1, the stuff that we get straight away, how it can help me and empower me within my organization. And then you get the teams level, which I'm not going to worry about now, but at a higher level, they can get anonymized. So just to let you know, we don't sort of say, hey, John did this today and Simon did that. But it will bring up to say, hey, look, you know, 70% of the organization are being able to do certain things, and we see this as a weakness and this as a strength, so that they're able to kind of get feedback, which in the old days they got with word of mouth when HR did a report at the board meeting potentially, or, you know, when they saw some paper reports about how many people got trained on a particular application. So when you approach your executives about Viva, you know, make sure you identify what they want to get out, or what some of their weaknesses are within the organization, because I think that Viva will actually be able to help them out. So yes, we've had a few projects that we've worked on together, Marijn, where not enough executive buy-in really has led to problems within the project.
True.
I'm not going to ask you to remember one and put you on the spot, but yeah, but we have seen that happen. So yes, executive buy-in, one of the key reasons for projects to actually have problems.
And that actually brings us very nicely into the next fail is poor communications and training, because you need to properly communicate the purpose and the benefits of the thing that you are going to release, especially for managers, because if you want to get that management buy-in, they need to know A, what they're buying into, but B, how that is going to advance the organization into a next level of being, of working. So they definitely need to know what the platform or the application does. They need to know if what the purpose is, how to get it, what the benefits are, stuff like that. But you also need to communicate that to each and every one of you that is going to be using this. Now, communications is not something, but because this is all change management, of course. So this is not just sending out an email to everyone saying, hey, Viva Insights, we now have it. You will find it here, you will find it there, and have fun with it. No, you need to do much more than that, of course. So you need to try to follow the ADKAR procedure, where you make people aware of something, create desire so that people want to have this application, that people feel the need to have this. Then you can deliver training for some knowledge. Then finally, they can have the ability to start using the application, and then potentially reinforce that learning, reinforce that whole process once more. Now, of course, if you want to have people working with Viva topics, Viva Amplify, Viva Insights, whatever Viva application, you will have to train them, of course. And what is very important is that in training, we don't have one size fits all. It's not just, this is Viva Insights, this is what you can do with it, and go have fun with it. You need to get specific training on specific functionality for a specific group of people. And the better you can do that, the better you can specify who needs to know what kind of information, the better you will have a rollout and user adoption of that new application.
Yeah, it's very crucial that you know your audience, especially in the Viva world. All right.
Yeah.
Insights, we're going to talk in a little second about resistance to change and stuff. Actually, why don't I just swap that over now? So a lot of your issues you're going to have is that people will not want to. You know, you will end up people that get enthusiastic about it and then they'll die out. And when you're talking about communications and training, they have not got time to do the training. The average, I think there's I read a statistic recently around training when people are doing new applications, that the amount of percentage of people that actually do the training in preparation for the change is actually really low. I mean, we're talking 30% numbers. And then you wonder why rolling out a new application is going to fail, because people actually suddenly go, oh yeah, today's the day I get this new application. And it's not going to do what I need it to do because they have no real idea of how it needs to be. So Marijn's right. Knowing your audience and understanding how you're going to train them and how you're going to communicate to them and at what level and everything else is kind of key and important, because resistance to change is going to stop you being successful. It's going to put you in the 70%. Okay, if you don't somehow work out what they're going to resist. And we are right about the change management. It is very much about saying to guys, yes, why are you not going to do this? We need to anticipate where their resistance is. We need to understand why they don't want to be able to use that particular Viva application. Is it because they don't actually see the benefit? Is it because they're too busy? Is it because, you know, it's 3 clicks too many to get to? So you can't just kind of say, okay, it's released on a Monday and now I've got nothing to do with the rest of the week. You kind of really need to go and talk to the people that now have the application. You find out, do a bit of floor walking, go and see where they're at. Create great stories around the value that it's going to give to those people, because we are talking that first slide. It's about a cultural change. Viva, it's not about, hey, there's a new way of doing a presentation. There's a new tool for calculating, like those production apps where people can see, hey, I've created 6 presentations this week. Hey, I've created an Excel spreadsheet that will calculate my project costs. They are physical things they can see. But when it comes to actually being told how much time they spent in a meeting this week and how much time they spent collaborating with everybody else, then you need to understand the value that it will have to them, so people can get that email with their daily insights, for example, and they can say, okay, is it a good thing that I did yesterday, or is it a bad thing and I actually need to change? Do I spend enough time in my day productively adding value to my organization, or did I spend 80% of the time in meetings, 20% of the time collaborating, and no time at all to actually understand the value of that meeting and understanding what somebody told me and how I can put that into play? And so, yeah, focus time is great, but it kind of implies focus on doing something when sometimes you just need time for myself. And actually, you know, trying to get that message across to people when they are put under pressure to deliver things, when they're put under pressure to do things, is actually part of that resistance that we have in terms of being able to change that culture. And you'll have to do some work Tuesday and some Wednesday and some Thursday and some Friday and the next month and the month after. You know, it's continual to be able to kind of beat that resistance. And of course, I'm very conscious of the time, Marijn, so we just need to keep moving on. Otherwise, we'll never get to the cool stuff at the end.
The good stuff, yes, true. But I just want to say that indeed, that resistance to change is the exact opposite of the desire phase in ADKAR. So you want to have people wanting this instead of saying, no, I don't. So poor user experience is, of course, also a very big part in rolling out an application. User experience is, of course, super important in any kind of application. When was the last time you saw an ugly application or a setting that changed and you didn't really know where that was? I know that I've had that a few weeks ago, even when somebody built a Power App and that just looked horrible. And with just a few tweaks and bits and bobs, you can make it just work in an excellent way, so that people will start using much more. Now
that's a great example, actually, Marijn, because I know we had that story a few weeks ago where, you know, your view was, well, Power Apps are okay, but they're a bit Lego. They're a bit, you know, they do their work, but the experience is not good. And then somebody actually took you on side and went, let me show you, Marijn, how a Power App should look and how easy it is to make it look cool. And it was a little bit of extra effort, but it showed us, you know, how the user experience can be so improved just by actually considering that. And it will change people's view on all of these things.
Exactly. So Gosia, I don't know if you're in the session, but yes, you did change my world, rock my world, but my Power Apps view of things anyway.
And there we go, Kevin. We've answered your question, mate. So we are watching the comments as they come in. Yes. So how can you make a difference in that challenge? And just to finish off, I know Marijn's doing this slide, and that's fine. But we also talked earlier about MS Teams as well, and the menuing system, and some of the current limitations that you know, a poor user experience. If I have to go digging out for an application, then again, it can get in the way. So yeah. Be as smart and as cool as you can.
Yeah, and one of the things that I, for example, find very difficult into explaining, for example, Viva Insights, is that Viva Insights does integrate with Outlook and it does integrate in Teams, but you don't have the same functionality. So in Outlook, you can do different things than you can in Teams, which kind of makes sense because you want to do other things in Outlook. You want to play more with your calendar. In Teams, you want to do more around collaboration. But it's sometimes so difficult to explain that to people where a certain functionality is, because they might want to look on how to protect their lunchtime and they want to go to the Viva app, but it's not in the Viva app. They need to go to Outlook.
Yes, we need Amplify.
Maybe.
Get those messages out there to the people that are using the different apps inside the app, you know, as a tool to help us get moving forward. But yes, user experience, very easy to fall into.
let's go because we are running out of time.
No, we're not. I think we're probably good because we'll get quicker. We've still got we've got till 10 o'clock. Is that right, Kevin? I think he'll tell us in a minute. We've still got 15 minutes or so to do. Yeah, Nod, excellent. Look at that. Oh, just like a spitting image puppet, he pops in and confirms himself. Great. Not many people, I'm sure, in this time zone know what spitting image is or have grey hair like me, but don't worry about it. So, yeah, even Marijn doesn't know what spitting image is. All right, data privacy and security concerns. Concerns are always there from users. People, again, resistant to change in many areas. But in this particular one, especially with things like insights and topics, it's kind of knowing more than you've told it. So you're always suspicious. You know, think Delve, for those that remember Delve when it first came out, and all of a sudden it knew who sent you an email and it knew what appointments you'd had and all that kind of stuff. We're getting used to it slowly but surely. But if you want to empower people with Viva, if you want to do a cultural change, then they have to trust you. They have to trust the fact that you're giving them information about their day and how their day was spent. But you're the only person that can see this. It's telling you everything you already know, but in a different way. But we have to kind of make sure that when we say things, people believe us. So we need to build up a whole bunch of trust here, which is a communications track in its own area, being transparent about it, being open, being sort of letting them and show them some concerns around security and say, look, this is my document. Can you see it? No, you can't see it. But look, I'm going to share it with you now. And I'm in control of who I can share it with and who I can't. Those kinds of simple exercises, short videos, purposely identifying. Don't hide the privacy and security issues. Actually be out there and say, look, this is safe and let me show you how safe it is. And it's a key part of the message. But if you don't handle this, you don't know what people are thinking. And that's the biggest problem with the whole Viva story, is it is a cultural change. As we said in that first slide, it's about user experience. And quite frankly, you have no idea what they're thinking about, which basically means you have to tell them what to think. You have to be very clear that, you know, there is no security issues here. They're always a security issue, but there's security issue we can manage if we look after it properly and you're in control of that. There are no privacy issues here because you're looking at your content that you can already see. And you've got to tell that story in a very clear and concise and colourful way to be able to make sure there. But this is something that will, again, cause you a problem. So anything to add to this? Because I know we talked about Delve in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Because data privacy is something that we saw a few years ago with the rollout of Delve.
Yeah.
That suddenly documents or information was appearing out of nowhere, and because it was poorly secured and poorly shared. We see that here as well as a very important measure in Viva Insights, for example.
Yeah.
And we will also see that again in a few months, years, when Copilot comes out for different applications.
Months.
Sorry?
Months.
Yes, probably.
You got my prediction. It's on a podcast 2 podcasts ago. Yeah, we'll see whether
we talked about that. Yes.
Yeah, it is important to get this. It's also to get a feel from people about whether this is something that they are concerned about. So
yeah, exactly.
So fake news can easily become a reality. So Marijn, would you got something to add? No, you were good. I thought
I was
no,
gonna talk about just fake news can become a reality. So don't be a statistic. Don't be one of those 70% people with a failure. Be one of those people that has it tied down, is following all the rules, is handling a good communication around that data privacy, is handling the user experience in a good way, has gone from resistance to change into that desire stage, has handled communication. So please make sure that you do that well. And Viva, as Steve already said, as an application which is not Word and Excel, which doesn't do anything to help you solve a task, it needs more of a white glove service. It needs more focus. It needs more user adoption. It needs more handheld holding to make all that happen.
Cool. All right. So let's finish off nice and happy, and let's talk about some of these tools for success. Literally,
so you're actually talking about a happy ending here.
We're talking about a happy ending. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
We will be releasing a podcast this weekend. Marijn and I covered a lot of this information just recently on the latest podcast. And so if you want to get some more details on this, please pick that up over the weekend. The URL was at the beginning of the presentation. Oh, and you can always pick it up from any of the URLs on the bottom of this slide here. Yes, Kevin, we're doing an advert, but I'm sure you'll be telling everybody about your podcast throughout the day as well. So we wanted to kind of just talk at some of the things that we identified as we chatted through this. So identify your successes. We're going to dig down on some of these, clarify the outcomes, be pragmatic, all right? Be realistic about what you can and can't do. Deliver value. Anybody that has listened to us before understands my view on value and agile, and focus on the good, because there are some good things in projects and bad things in projects. So let's dig down on some of those for the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes. So we've got a minute to slide and then we're all good. But let's see where we go with those.
Right. Identify your successes. Super important. You need to know where you want to go to, but you need to know where you want to go to. You need to know your scope, what you need to deliver. List that down. Why not use OKRs for that? Why not use Viva goals for that? Maybe instead of setting up KPIs, why don't you try OKRs? So, okay, this is what our objective is, and this is how we are going to measure those. So know what you're going to deliver. I think that is super important.
Yeah, it's true. Identify it, and so you can things you can put a checkbox against. You know, a user story that says, "Hey, by rolling out topics, people will be able to produce stuff they want to put in there and be able to go and find information out about it and get themselves tagged as an expert on that particular area." So clarify those outcomes. Okay, that's really, really important. After we roll out Viva. Teams Viva, people will be able to have better scope of their time and their value within that 40-hour week. We'll be able to do some positive things like finish work at a particular time and be notified when they're getting close to the end of their day, and being able to identify how much work they do outside of those hours. So clarify those outcomes, because if you can focus on those outcomes at the end of the project, it's a good thing. It's not in the 70%. It's actually lowering your chances of failure, because you can identify the things that you've been successful with and being able to move those things onwards. So clarify your outcomes is important. Some of these videos make you feel a bit and worried, don't they? So it's fine, yeah.
All right. So next up, deliver on high value. So make that list of outcomes, make that and prioritize that list. Like, what are the things that will deliver the most value to your organization? And that is going to be different for every organization. That might be different for every team. That might be different for every person. But try to prioritize what is most important for you for rolling this specific thing out, and delivering or focus on those high level items, on those high value items. Sorry, not high level items. On those high value items, things that don't give you that much extra benefit. Maybe just do them when you're ahead of schedule, which never happens, but try to forget about those things. So there's always one of those, how do you call that, Steve? One of those Gartner charts where it says like amount of work and amount of value. So always try to focus. Sorry?
Focus in the top right-hand quadrant. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the things that you need to focus on. Things that take a lot of work and don't present a lot of value. Yeah. Don't do those.
Sorry, I put you off by bringing some whiskey barrels in here then. I didn't mean to distract you. No, but it's very true. I think that if you can identify the values that is going to bring in most good feelings about what they're doing within Viva. So identify within your organization the Viva apps that will deliver the most. Focus on the good stuff. And then if you've prioritized those outcomes and you've done the ones that is going to deliver maybe to most people or maybe the most value, you kind of got to work out what will bring your 70% down, because like if I focus on the ones that touch 70% of the organization and I can focus on what value that will bring to those, then you're focusing on the good things. And if you can checkbox those, then again, you're setting yourselves up for success.
And then, of course, as a last step, be pragmatic about things. Things will change. Things will be different. Don't try to enforce your view of looking at things. Try to follow the Microsoft way. I always feel that is the most easy path, the path of least resistance. Just be clear about what you want to do and don't try to force the product into a way that it doesn't want to go to. Don't try to force your team or your organization in a way that the product doesn't want to go to, because that will create lots of friction for everyone.
No, I agree. Absolutely agree. The realistic thing here, the most thing we've not touched upon a little bit, but just to finish off with, is time. This will take time. This is not going to be like rolling out Teams where I'm going to roll it out to everybody. I'm going to tell them this little bit and they'll discover the rest, or I'm going to roll out Office apps and I'm going to let them discover the rest. They will discover it because it adds immediate value to them and you can monitor and measure it and you can focus on things. But within Viva, it will take time. It is about being able to drip feed new improvements and drip feed things to people and be very realistic about your timeline. Well, that's not bad. 2 minutes to go and we're on the last slide. Just saying
We
hi.
also need to foresee a little time for the next speaker to get up in here and to set up and prepare.
But as I said, we do know that projects fail, and it's very easy for projects to fail. So what we wanted to do in this presentation, and you've got some email addresses there, so just drop us a line if you want to be able to get a copy of the presentation, is to say, look, identify why things fail. That's why things fail here. Work out how Viva and how other aspects of your project can be positive outcomes in those areas, and then basically manage those spaces for failure. And we finished off with some tips and tricks on how you can identify the stuff that will make you successful in that space. Good. Hope you've enjoyed it. There was no other questions came up, so I think people were still eating their breakfast or moving on to their lunch or doing those kinds of things. So we're all good to go. So Kevin, are you set to bring in who's next?
Michael.
We have Michael, yes, ready to join us. So I'm very excited. So I'll bring him now and take down. But thank you so much for that session today. Really interesting. I have to admit, I had to sneak off and get some breakfast through some of it, but we'll be going back and listening to the
we heard your Rice Krispies popping. Yeah.
No, really good session, and we'll be listening to. And you're very welcome. We don't have sponsors for this podcast because we want people to be able to promote all their random crap, such as podcasts and other things. And the Viva Explorers Day Belgium, which is coming up June.
In 2 weeks, June 13th, we've got a Viva Explorers Belgium Day. Exactly. Totally forgot to mention that. Ooh.
Terrible, Marijn. Terrible. Somebody will have to beat you up.
But thank you both very much for this, and especially thank you, Steve, because I know you've got 2 more sessions today, so I'll let you
I'll be on the later on today.
Possibly get some work done or drink some whiskey.
I need to go and finish the presentations. Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. Just what you do on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. See you later, guys. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Best of luck, Michael.
Thanks.